Hey everyone, I'm going to teach you how to be making any rubric you want in Google Forms. So I've created a folder for the name of my assignment, and I have attached a Google Doc that is an old rubric of mine that I have for a podcast project that my forensics kids do. And in this same folder, I'm going to go ahead and create the Google form that's going to be assessing my students. So it is the Serial Criminal Podcast. And for my first question, I'm going to want to put student name. For this, you're going to choose either checkboxes if you're going to have multiple students maybe in the same group. So instead of student name, you could put group members, and you can select all the students in that group. Or you can use drop down and enter in a list of the students that you want to use. All right, and then from there, you can create the rubric pretty much any way you want. So I'm going to show you the rubric that I'm working with. It's a pretty simple rubric that it has different sections of stuff that we're looking for about their serial criminal when they create their podcast. So I'm going to pick my scoring criteria, and I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to come back to my Google form, and I'm going to put that scoring criteria in my rubric. Now, there are different ways that you can do this. I could do multiple choice, and I could list all the different values that this would get. So this is worth 6 points. I could do a couple different options, and I'm going to show you each of those right now. So you could do something like this, where it's a multiple choice, and you pick what score the students get. But I could easily switch that into a drop-down menu. If I don't want to have to click on it, I can press the drop-down menu and scroll and find the number that I need. Or even more simple, you can do short answer. This is worth 6 points, and you can go to response validation, and I'm going to say that my number has to be less than or equal to 6 points. That way I could add in 6.5, or not 6.5, but 5.5, 4.5, anything lower than this value with a decimal, and it will still count that in the rubric. So that's what I'm going to do for this one. What I'm going to do next is I am going to add a section right after that for feedback. Again, there are different options for feedback. This is the one that I have decided to use for this rubric, which is going to be checkboxes. When I'm grading, I know what things I want to say to these kids as far as what pieces are wrong or incorrect. I've been teaching this class for a few years. And so I'm going to put on here missing birth date, missing hometown, etc. I finished this one, missing birth date, missing hometown, and missing the following number of other facts. I'm going to add other, and that will allow me as I create this form to click this option and say you're missing this many of the number of other facts, and I can type in how many they're missing. All right, and now I'm going to go and do the next part of my rubric. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to grab the next piece. So case details. For this one, as you can notice, there's a lot of little pieces that go into this. So I might want to create a different type of question here to grade this section. So let me show you what that would look like. All right, so as you can see, this piece had case details that it had 5 different criteria that were needed, and since this section's worth 20 points, that made them each 4. So I'm now able to make this a multiple choice grid question. So if I click out of it, let's see, my new question, who, what, when, where, evidence, outcome, I can give a score for each of those little categories, and then I can again add a feedback. which I personally just like the checkboxes. There's a lot of cool things to do with this. I'll go into more details in other videos, but don't feel like you have to do a different type of question to evaluate your score every single time. The only thing that you have to make sure to get this to work is that that score is separate from the feedback. And the reason being is if we keep the score separate from the feedback, we can translate this into an Excel spreadsheet or a Google Sheet that will calculate the assignment score for you. Another great feature of this is that I can add comments as I see them coming up. So let's say I'm into the third project that I'm grading, and I'm noticing that everyone is really struggling on this outcome section with a particular piece. I didn't know that until I got 3 projects in. So for everyone else, I've been typing that in other. Well, now instead of typing in another, I can just come back here to the form and I can add that as an option. And now every form going forward will have that option. And you don't have to change your whole rubric. You can just come add that one little piece in order to move forward without any glitches. So I'm just going to leave this like this for right now. And as I grade and specific feedback comes up for the different sections, I'll add that. And then when I'm done using it my first year, all the feedback that I give will be stored for next year. And then I can add more feedback next year, or I can change it up. And I don't even have to remember where I wrote that feedback. It's all in the same Google form. I would also strongly suggest that you make each piece a required piece if you are adding a score there so that you don't end up with any blank values at the end. All right, so my entire rubric is done. I want to say that took me about 10 minutes, 15 minutes tops. So I have the student name, I've got the early childhood section, some feedback on there. Again, this one's a bigger section where they create their own case, so there's a lot of case details for me to grade, so I'm going to grade it like this. Feedback on there. And like I said, you can always add feedback as you're grading the assignments and you know what feedback you want to be giving. And then so again, this one, I'm just typing in the answer. I can add feedback as I go. These are ones that I know people usually miss, so I went ahead and put them in there because I've done this assignment before. And then like down here, this is a podcast. So ideally, what you're going to be doing, and I'll show you, is using this to grade as you are listening to kids present, as you're walking around the room and getting feedback from them as they're completing an assignment, as you're listening to a podcast, a video they created, as you're reading a paper, as you're looking at a lab. You could literally use this for whatever you wanted. You would choose your student's name, and you could literally type in your grades as you're listening to their presentation, or you have this form pulled up on your phone and their videos playing in your browser. You can use it in a million different ways. I really think that for this one, I'm going to go walk around in a park or walk around at our school and grade as I'm listening with my headphones to my podcasts and just grading on my phone. I literally don't need to bring papers. I don't need to bring a pen. I don't need to bring anything with me. I can grade solely on this form. So I have sat here. I'm going to grade this kid. You're missing this. There you go. Missing this. 4, 5. Oops, and see, I made a mistake on here. I didn't make this a short answer. I accidentally made it a multiple choice. But that's the great thing about Google Forms. I can go back and fix that before I do the next piece. So see, I can go do short answer and change this to response validation, because that's just the way I like to do it. And again, you don't have to do response validation. You don't even have to do a fill-in text. You could literally do multiple choice and do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, and you just click what grade they got for each piece. So, when I do the feedback for this, I would write something here, and I would press submit on my form. And that is how to create a rubric using Google Forms. Now, watch my other videos to see how you can use this rubric to auto-grade all the projects that you've graded with it, how you can use this rubric to directly submit a copy of the feedback you've given into a student's assignment in places like Google Classroom, or just in a Google Doc that's specifically created for them. So stay tuned for that. Thanks, guys.